Within the lexicon of superhero stories, there are certain words that will forever be associated with the lives of heroes. Invincible, meaning someone who can't be beaten. Mighty, someone possessed of incredible strength. Uncanny,
freak.
Sensational, to possess an amazing charisma. And of course, spectacular, possessing fighting skills, charisma, and a unique je ne sais quoi. Which pretty much describes me to a T.
Your fly's undone.
What?
Oh. Enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek. You know, there's nothing I love more in this little comic book world I live in than my biannual Kirkman read. That's when I get to order and then read the latest trade paperbacks for Robert Kirkman's Image titles, The Walking Dead and Invincible. Now, I love The Walking Dead, of course, but Invincible is my favorite. Man, I'd hate to live in a world without Invincible to read.
They just announced they're canceling Invincible. Yeah, thanks for the big part in this episode, buddy.
Invincible. World without Invincible, no. No, Anti-M. Hello, dear boy. I'm here to offer you a bargain. What would you give to have one more day with Invincible? Shouldn't you be offering me this deal after the book ends? I mean, we've got a whole year. I'm completely booked for 2017. The Donald will need my help setting up shop, as it were. I choose not to understand that. But seriously, you can't be offering me the traditional rewrite your timeline deal. Well, why not? It's a cliche! It's one of the most despised and mocked storylines of all time. Hell, J. Michael Straczynski just left the comic book industry. Probably because of that turkey. Perhaps. But it was the one time I was successful in a comic book, my one victory over a superhero. Supposedly undone by a red-headed supermodel. Quesada can believe whatever he likes. Well, maybe. But what if I showed you how to do the reboot storyline right from an arc in Invincible called, well, Reboot? I love Canadian CGI. Right. First, a little background on Invincible. Invincible tells the story of Mark Grayson, son of the alien hero Omni-Man and his human wife. When Mark's powers finally kick in, he finds out his father is actually the vanguard of the Viltrumite alien empire that wants to conquer Earth. They have a bloody battle that chases his father away. Eventually, Mark meets and falls in love with fellow hero Adam Eve, gains an insectoid half-brother in Oliver, and even redeems his father and overthrows the vile Emperor Thrag, with his dad becoming the new emperor. However, when his old colleague, the super genius robot, takes over the Earth in a benevolent dictatorship, he and Eve leave for life on the stars with their daughter, Tara. This comic is extremely violent at times and allows Kirkman to play with a lot of the superhero tropes, as well as real-world issues like domestic violence, sexual assault, and even abortion. Normally I'd start you with the first issue in the arc, but I think we could all benefit from a little recap of what happened in issue 123. With the knowledge that the rogue Viltrumite ex-Emperor Thrag has bred an army of quick-aging offspring, the combined forces of the universe are hoping to find him before the army comes of age and overwhelms them. To that end, they've recruited Mark and his brother Oliver to lead the search. Invincible says goodbye to his girlfriend Eve and their daughter, Tara, before they head to Thrag's last known location. They make contact with their spy on a planet covered in strange vegetation. He isn't even sure that Thrag has left, so they begin a planet-wide search. Mark enters a cave system when Oliver's communication cuts out. A force yanks him down into the planet until he discovers a group of blue threads or roots. There's a flash of light and suddenly Mark is back on the toilet in his original home on Earth, now de-aged to before his powers kicked in. And this is where Reboot starts, with Mark trapped in the past. A past that's going to erupt into massive violence any day now, but not necessarily a past that Mark wants to change. You know, it's not really that hot in hell. Afterlife cooling, it's not a myth, despite what the deniers say. His mom is watching Mark's dad fight on TV. He makes an offhand comment about going to help him, but she reminds him that he doesn't have any powers. He approaches Eve in high school, though she can't figure out why. They're not friends. She only agrees to hear him out when he almost uses her hero name. He begs her for help. They mean a lot to each other, and he's scared. Not sure she can trust him, she still takes him to her teen team's headquarters. She restrains him as Rexplode asks who he is. He tries to explain that he's traveled back in time from the future and begins dropping facts that no one should know about. When Mark reveals that Robot's actually alive and controlling the robot suit mentally, they begin to take him seriously. He then takes advantage of his future knowledge by sending the police to arrest a man who was turning students into living bombs. Mark is still worried that this is some sort of elaborate mental mind game. He wonders if there's something the teens know that he doesn't, but that he could still confirm with his future knowledge. Robot volunteer said he's worried about himself. He doesn't relate well to other people because of his isolation, and is worried that his lack of humanity will cause him to do something wrong someday. This resonates with Mark, knowing Robot will one day conquer the Earth, but he doesn't share that knowledge. He does, however, know that he is genuinely in the past. He leaves to go home when Robot warns him. He may be tempted to interfere in events, but doing so could have catastrophic results. Eve asks if he needs to be flown back, but this is the day his powers kicked in. Sure enough, he's able to fly. At the family dinner, he does change things when he keeps his powers a secret from Mom and Dad. He flies into the night and screams that he wants this to be over. He wants to go home. In short order, he gets his costume made and begins taking out his early villains before they've had a chance to rise to power. He tries to convince himself he's doing good, but the stress is tremendous. He even leads the teen team against the first of many alien invasions from an alternate dimension, only for his father to arrive, shocked that Mark didn't tell him about his powers. After dinner, he wants to know why Mark kept this from him. Mark asks, does his father really love him and his mother? Well, of course. Then if that's true, Omni-Man must not conquer the world. Of course, with any time travel storyline, when you start making changes to the past, you can change things in the present. Right, Mr. Devil?
Right.
Mark knows he's proof that the Viltrumites can breed with humans and create powered offspring. Now, Nolan will kill the Guardians of the Globe and try to recruit Mark to overthrow Earth. He'll refuse, and his dad will nearly kill him before abandoning the planet. Eventually, he'll realize that his feelings are true, and together they overthrow Emperor Thrag and liberate the Earth. They need to keep talking right now because the last thing Mark wants is a fight. His father hits him. He's not sure how he figured this all out, but the Earth is theirs for the taking. This isn't a hypothetical. Mark has seen the future. Refusing the idea that he's a traitor, he attacks Mark, who realizes this was a mistake. He lures him away from the cities that got destroyed in the past and into the desert. They crash into a mountain as Omni-Man continues to talk about taking over the planet, only to see that they've crashed into the Guardians of the Globe's base. Mark spills the beans and the Guardians move in, only for Nolan to punch a hole through the Immortal. Invincible guides the Guardians against him, and they manage to get him off balance enough to take him down. They need a way to hold him, and Cecil, Omni-Man, and later Invincible's contact man in the government arrives with his zombie soldiers to take custody. He knew that once he busted one of the mad scientists from earlier, Cecil would put him to work building those soldiers. Nor would Cecil want Omni-Man's secret agenda exposed, as he's a consummate puppet master obsessed with keeping useful pawns in check. In his cell, Nolan admits, Mark was right. Being right about Nolan's emotional attachments to Earth, to his wife and son, just made him angrier. He might have killed the Guardians, his friends, to pave the way for the Viltrumite invasion. He might have killed millions, maybe even billions, for an empire he no longer believes in. He thanks his son for stopping him. On the moon, he meets Alan the alien for the first time, laying out that he, his father, and even the current leader of the Coalition of Planets means there are now 3 Viltrumites ready to turn on the Empire. Omni-Man and Alan leave Earth, thus sparing the planet from the team of Viltrumites who would come to investigate his betrayal. His mom goes home, and even though he knows Cecil doesn't care about his happiness, agrees to take his father's place and work for the government. I tried to get a job with the government saving the planet Earth once.
You don't have any powers?
Well, nobody does. I was going to be a secret agent, is what I mean. The problem is I couldn't pass the government's civil service test. Could you help me with that?
There are limits, even to my powers.
Mark continues to circumvent villains and invasions before they happen, even saving Eve once or twice, even though she's still dating Rexplode. Alone, in his room, he starts crying, when a voice points out that he saved innumerable lives. He's again confronted by the massive glowing tissues. He's undone so much death and misery, yet something he did prevented Eve and Rex from breaking up, but that shouldn't matter. But Mark says he hates what his life has become. The entity has been observing this whole time. It knows Invincible's capable of great self-sacrifice. The universe is out of balance and too many innocent people have died. It's given Mark this opportunity to see how much better things could be if he gives up his old life to rewrite history. All he has to do is choose a better life. Except he can't do it. If he still has the opportunity to go back to his daughter, he has to take it. This shocks the entity. Mark explains that while he and Eve will probably get together one day and have a child, the circumstances that shaped their life would be different, meaning that child wouldn't be Tara. Not exactly. The entity did not foresee that Invincible would sacrifice billions for one life. Mark's angry now. The entity used him without explaining what it wanted to accomplish. It isn't fair of the entity to expect him to choose sacrificing his daughter after being put through this hell. The entity offers no explanation. It feels that it and its goals are beyond understanding. It asks Mark one last time, will he change the past? No. Then he's doomed them all, and Mark is a disgrace. Invincible's returned to the cave. He flies out and finds that the planet is now dead of all life and covered in crashed ships. He returns back to Eve in their apartment. She's shocked to see him. He starts to apologize. Eve can barely make sense of it when he asks to see Tara. He turns to go in, but what he sees causes him to burst into tears. His baby daughter is now 5 years old, and she asks if Mark is her father. And that's the gut punch ending of Invincible. Mark has done what he thinks is the right thing from his point of view, sacrificing a better world to save the life of the one person who means the most to him, his daughter. But did all this double dipping into the past create a good story, or was it just an excuse for another time jump in a main storyline, something Robert Kirkman has previously done in The Walking Dead? Let's take a closer look at these issues of Invincible. I'm better. First off, I'm aware that a lot of the comparisons I'm making about this story show it to be favorable when compared to the infamous One More Day, but honestly, Kirkman's too good a writer not to be aware of that story when he did this one. In some ways, I think Reboot is a perhaps long overdue reaction to One More Day. That said, I'll just wrap up my points about the comparison before getting to a more fairly biased review. I felt the Reboot arc showed the right way to respond to the idea of changing one's own history for the better. Of course, Mark wants to save lives. That's all he does in the past. But when offered to make a deal to make the changes permanent, which in fairness he didn't know was going to happen when he started making those changes, he can't do it, because it would potentially destroy the person he loves more than anything. Of course, the circumstances are different for Peter Parker's. Peter took Mephisto's deal as the only convoluted way to save Aunt May's life. And it cost him his marriage, not his relationship with MJ, although her subsequent leaving was meant to be a result of them not being married. Arguably, the stakes were higher for Mark. Rather than letting an old woman die, his daughter might never be born. Like many previous stories, Mark has only his instinctual knowledge of right and wrong to help him make a decision. He makes a selfish choice, but one that to him is the right choice. He can't trade in millions of strangers he's never met for the only daughter he knows and loves. He says no because to him the price is too high. Peter Parker appeared happier than he'd ever been following the One More Day deal. Mark is instantly made miserable in rejecting this deal because it cost him personal time watching his daughter grow up. One More Day was awful because it was a ham-fisted event that was only done to effect a permanent change to Spider-Man's continuity. Reboot was good because it fit in with the stories being told and will have genuine consequences. As for the story on its own merits, it's good, but you need to be aware of what happened in the previous 120 issues before going into it. If you're not an Invincible fan from the start, you might get a bit lost. Also, instead of the usual time spent with the supporting characters, the focus of these 3 issues is entirely on Mark. We spend a little time with Omni-Man, Cecil, and Robot, but only in Mark's presence. I would have liked to have seen some of the new developments in the past brought on by Mark's interference, and then followed characters to see how they dealt with it. We're also a bit busy following Mark around as he interacts with those past events. Other than him curling up on his bed and that ending, we never spend much time seeing the emotional effects this trip has had on him. Maybe a 4th issue and a little more time would have benefited the story. Ryan Ottley's art is great as usual, but where Ryan flourishes in his action scenes and strange creatures, here it's mostly on Earth so we don't get to explore the monsters and aliens he's so good at drawing, which I half suspect is why Robert Kirkman moved the family to space, so he could get a chance to draw more of those type of creatures. I suppose my point is that there are better examples of Ryan Ottley's art on Invincible than these 3 issues. Overall, this story did time travel better than Marvel has done in years. And it shows that sometimes the most heroic thing a person can do is be unheroic, no matter the consequences. I give Invincible, issues 124 through 126, 4 out of 5 stars. It may not be the best Invincible storyline I've read, but on its own, Invincible has been a fun, emotional roller coaster of a book, and I will feel its loss when it's finally done. Meh. I didn't like it. Oh, sure, he got screwed, but I prefer the ironic punishment, where a man asking for a deal gets hoisted by his own petard. What? Buyer beware! Oh, can I wake up now? Are you asking me for a deal? No! I'll take that as a yes. Oh, I'm back. What's wrong? Oh, poopy.